Altenberg in Germany, the venue for the BMW IBSF Bobsleigh and Skeleton World Championships for 2021. First day of action, women's bobsleigh underway. Martin Haven and John Morgan watching the action with you. And John, our first heat showed us who might well still be in medal contention and definitely ruled a few out.
Well, you can't win the race in the first heat, but you can certainly lose it, Martin. And this young German, Kim Kalicki, silver in last year's World Championships, fourth best start. And she put herself in a position to get on the podium. And big mistake there in the bottom part of the track, but she wasn't the only one that had those type of challenges. And here's another German athlete, a young one, Laura Nolte. Well, she crashed in the second run of the World Championships on this track last year. So she's got some demons to overcome in the second run. She had the best start in the first heat, pretty good in the bottom part of the track. She's in second, but two young Germans are chasing down Kaylee Humphries and Lolo Jones. Well, Kaylee's won 3 World Cups on this track. She won last year's World Championships on this track. She's driving a brand new sled this week, a BTC. And this Queen of Speed and the only athlete wearing goggles in the competition, she's the leader who everybody else is chasing.
Interestingly, just looking back at last year's results, Kim Kalicki was third after the first heat. I'm trying to subtract. She was 12 hundredths behind Kaylee in third place. Kaylee was the first heat leader. In fact, Kaylee was fastest on heats 1 and 2. Well, this track, John, is full of tripwires and hazards. It's not a forgiving track in any way, shape, or form.
Well, you usually say snakes and ladders. The track is gremlins. I like to use the word gremlins. Alana Myers-Taylor and Lolo Jones have this record from 2018, or Brianna Jones, I think that was. But
it was Brianna, yeah.
The first curve is named after Matthias Benish, who crashed on that curve. The first curve. Not too many tracks you crash in the first curve. Look at these spectacular pictures. This Omega curve coming up, to a 3/4 combination labyrinths out of the Omega. Big challenges. Now the long straightaway into the big Kreisel curve. A lot of pressure, and you have to exit here meticulously into this 11-12. This is where the gremlins start to really come up. 13, a lot of pressure. Airborne into 14 if you don't watch it. Uphill into this little jump out of 15. Speeds, it's not a super speedway, but Martin, we call this like Darlington is to NASCAR, Altenberg is to bobsled. It's a track too tough to tame.
Takes no prisoners, either in time or damage. If you make a mistake here, you will definitely pay for it. There are definitely no lets. So there with the pink gloves, Laura Nolte, and she is in the hunt for the medals. Not too far away, Alana Myers-Taylor, double world champion, 38 hundredths back. She's 11 hundredths out of the top 3. We could see a little bit of moving around. Mariama Yamanka, the 2019 world champion, the Olympic champion, there she is. Now she lies 48 hundredths off the lead, so nearly a quarter of a second out of medals, 21 hundredths out. So that might be a bit of a big jump. Cynthia Appia just saw there with a bright coloured hair. 9th place after a very impressive first run in her first World Championships, where she's able to see where she's going in the front seat. Some disappointing runs. Lubov Chernik, Misha McNeil, they've got work to do. Anne van Nieuwenhuis, maybe Alicia Rissling. Perhaps the most surprising of all, Christine de Bruin. Bronze medalist in the last 2 Worlds, only 17th. 20 sleds successfully completed the first of our 4 heats here in Altenberg, as we get our second heat of the Women's Bobsleigh World Championships underway. The first to go, Sylwia Smolarek and Julia Slupeka, the Polish duo. Sylwia with her brakewoman then finished 16th place last year. Let's see what they've got at the start.
Sylvia went through a crash early in training, Martin, and last year in training she crashed twice, but made all 4 heats in the race. Her brakeman, it's her first world championship. Way bigger brakeman than she had last year, Martin. She's from Gdansk, and she's from 100-meter long jumper from track and field. Here's that big loop in Omega, and you don't want to tap the wall in the exit or take on to curve 4. Curve 5, excuse me. Long straightaway. That's a very good exit. That's as good a straight line as you're going to find. Not good there in those up and downs, Martin. And this 11-12's a challenge. I look at curve 13. She negotiates that nice, and she does what most people ever. Look at the back end of the sled there. Wow.
Yeah.
Tokyo drift, Martin.
Yeah, big skid going past the commentary booths. You go over a brow, the sled goes light, and it always breaks away there unless you're absolutely dead straight. Brakewoman hovering the brakes over the ice. Now she applies them. They had to push the sled up to the finish. A little bit eager. Well, first run nerves are done. 58.81. That was 4/10 slower, and that big skid towards the bottom would not have helped.
Right here, look at this up and down. This is the Omega curve, and you don't want to hit the right-hand wall. That forces you in the middle, but Martin, this is, the sled almost disappears here. You don't want to do that. That wavering, a big W she just put in there. And then this is the bottom gremlin on the track. She won't be the last sled we see skid. Look at the back end there. Martin, you don't ever see bobsleds like that, right? Do that, wow.
Second up for the Bobsleigh Federation of Russia, Lubov-Chernik finished in 13th place here in Altenberg last year. 19th after the first heat. She was the first sled down. It turns out that what we thought might be standard for everybody was a bit of a horror show for Lubov-Chernik.
Yeah, 400 slower. Should be at least within 100th of your start time, 400s. But of course, on this track, start's not as important as it was at Innsbruck last week. This is not Innsbruck.
Yeah. Better speed than the Polish sled. Oh, and again.
Skidding, Martin, they're sideways.
Yeah.
Look at her check the rudders to try and just keep a little bit of control. Well, she's through and down, 2 out of 4 heats complete, 57.85. A little bit less, 1,200ths less than her first run. But Martin, this is just positioning yourself for tomorrow.
Yeah. She had about as little as control in that run as she did in the first heat. I wonder if they were sent the wrong way on runners by track conditions in training, because it is quick and glassy today.
We're still well off the track record by 4/10. Look at these skids. Yeah. You just don't see this in other tracks, Martin. I mean, This is an old East German sports training center built in 1983, and it's been refurbished a number of times.
Wide eyes from Lubov-Chernik. You'll see a lot of sleds going sideways there into 15. And maybe this will be the next. Mish McNeil, Montel Douglas, 8th place in the World Champs here last year. And in 18th place after the first heat. That is a long climb back up. She's only got 500ths over Lubov-Chernik.
18th place at the start, Martin. That's a little perplexing. And this athlete here 2 years ago, Martin, as we discussed in the first run, she led the World Cup race, which is a 2-heat race. She led at the end of the first heat. And then fell to 4th, which was still a great result. But here, after the first run, for her to be in 18th place, Martin, that's pretty confusing.
Yep.
This is much better lines there, but she's still 1,200ths back of the Bobsleigh Federation of Russia sled. Good speed there. Here she comes. I mean, this is what you expect. She's been on this track for probably 6 or 7 events. That's good, though. It's that one little tap, not a skid.
And that means she carries lots of speed at the bottom. Yeah, much better run.
57. Yeah, 2400's better.
Well, that would have moved her up 2 or 3 spots in the first heat, but it's certainly not a top 10 run.
No,
Never mind the top 6. A long way back from that first heat, isn't it?
A couple experienced pilots like her and De Bruyn, who comes up next, that is just, how can they be this far back?
Yeah.
Taps, that's a mistake there. Look at the airborne runner, that's from 13 to 14. And here, hard hit and checks the runners and comes straight. That's where she made her time, Martin. That was a pretty good last intermediate from curve intermediate 4 to 5.
But the speed is all gone at the start, and that's what happened to Christine de Bruyn in the first heat as well. Bronze medalist here in last year's Worlds, bronze medalist in Whistler as well in 2019. Sarah Villani behind her, her brake woman, her first season as a bobsledder. Well, they had a top 10 start, but a bottom of the 20s run.
Martin, she's only been in 3 World Cups this year, 5th, 8th, and 4th. She's the World Championship bronze medalist from last year, and she's in 17th place, the end of the first heat.
Yeah.
Go figure that.
Ooh. Well, waving through
nice
4, gets better out of 5.
Martin, a good run here, as we would expect her to have. She could move up 6, 7 spots easy.
No.
Ooh, but that doesn't help.
Shakes her head coming out of Tudai down the straight. The sled gets away from her again.
50/100 leads back to 48. That's the mistake she made above Kreisel. But we found out in the first run, with lines like that, you can make some time up here in the bottom. Let's see if she gets rewarded. 4200s to what? 38. Lost time in the bottom. Martin, that mistake.
2/10
above Kreisel.
Yeah.
Good lines. It's a better heat.
of...
I mean, she's 2600s better this run, but
just shaking her head. She's perplexed. Watch her when she comes down the straight out of curve 9, the Tudai curve. As the sled breaks away, she's shaking her head, and you can almost hear her going, no, not again.
Late here, runner tips, because she's going to hit twice, front end, back end. That causes the skid. And this isn't the way you want to think about entering the Kreisel, I can tell you that.
Disaster. She knew it was a disaster. What a horrible day for Christine de Bruyn. Well, next up is Switzerland's Melanie Hassler with Irina Strabel. She's back on the start line. On the left-hand side, you can see the tall, highest figure is Chris Woolley, their coach. She was not looking entirely healthy after the first run, John. She took a while to get out of the sled. Let's see what they've got at the start.
Martin, they had a bad start the first run. The 14th best start is 78, 81. Hassler's a volleyball player. Not too many volleyball players in the front seat of these sleds, usually track and field athletes. Let's see if she gets through. Yeah, that's pretty good. She had a couple sideways experiences down here in the straightaways, the 2 straightaways, Martin, out of 9 here and also out of 14. This is much better.
And she's going to pick up so much on Christine de Bruyn just by being straight into the Kreisel.
700s, very good lines there. Let's watch the runner tips here. As good as anybody we've seen, maybe Kaylee Humphreys. 1300s, 2000s, 17, 57.08. Wow, Martin, that's the biggest improvement in the field to date. 3900s better. And let's see if she gets out of the sled limping like she did in the first run.
57.08 was the 8th fastest run in the first heat. Yeah,
look at her.
I think she's had a lot of physio in the last hour, don't you? And she'll be getting a lot more tonight.
Well, she must have talked to her driving coach, because these are much better lines in the second run. First heat jitters, Martin, in her World Championships for her. Here, You won't see too many more sleds come that straight on that part of the track the rest of the heat.
There's Melanie on the right, Irina on the left. They're looking happy with that. Melanie Hassler leads, 5 sleds down, 15 to go. Heat 2 of 4 of the BMW IBSF Women's Bobsleigh World Championships. We're in Altenberg, Germany. 5 sleds gone. Melanie Hassner leads. Next is World Championship rookie Anastasia Makarova with the Alexandra Tarasova, her brakewoman.
Good technique in the sled. This is a long running track. 580 start, exact what they did in the first run. Both track and field athletes.
I think this is the second longest run for the athletes. La Plagne is the longest. Altenberg just a few meters shorter, but it feels like a marathon to some of these sprinters.
Martin, the sleds seem to be coming a lot straighter down the track than we saw in the first heat. I think we could maybe say first heat jitters of the World Championships. And on a track that we call too tough to tame.
Definitely for some,
good
but try telling Christine de Bruyne that they're coming straighter. This is a good run from Makarova. How better? Ooh, 100th in front. Well, she had a 10th in hand.
2200's better. 2200's better, though. Ken, so you know, like a golf tournament, you can't win this race on the first day, but you can certainly lose it, Martin, in this 4-heat competition. Little tap there, that's a mistake. Doesn't sound like much, but up top, Martin, she didn't do that in the first run. Little skid there into 15.
That was a lot cleaner. So she holds her place. She'll be in the top 15. Another World Cup rookie next, Margot Bock with Carla Seneschal. Neither of these have started a World Championships yet. Not a World Cup, a World Championships. 17th best start, drove herself into 14th position in the first of the 4 heats.
Now, drive down the track was pretty good, Martin. You know, we commented on that. You know, the 17th best start, she goes into 14. If you have the 10th best start, you should drive yourself into 7th or 8th. Not a lot of people with better starts drove themselves into a better position, but that's what this track will do to you. That wasn't perfect. You know, her home track, La Plagne, Martin, you talked about the starts are similar in Altenberg and La Plagne, longer than most tracks, a longer stride, longer run. 700s deficit. Good line there. 500s. Good lines in the bottom. She could get to green numbers.
There's only 100th covering the top 2 at the moment, so she's either ahead of 2 or behind both of them.
She'll be ahead.
Oh.
7. Wow, 2700's better. Coach doesn't like something there, but 2 really good runs down the track.
Yeah. And they've got the first day of this tough, intimidating track out of the way, haven't they?
Yeah, 2 good runs. You give her a good start time, I think you're going to see a top 7 out of her, but the start here, now watch the exit of the curve. You don't want to see anybody touch the right-hand wall. That forces you down to the middle of the next part of the labyrinth. You got to steer twice. Watch this here. Bang! Look at the back end of the sled. You know how much energy that is to make that sled lift like that at 70 miles an hour? Wow. Looks a little hurt too, Martin. She was limping there.
I'm not surprised. Probably popping a hip on that wall. Next up, Anne van Nieuwenhuis of Belgium. 11th place in last year's race. She's 13th after the first of our 4 heats. And a 200th of a second advantage over Margot Bock. Well, they'll give away a little time to the French crew at the start, but she needs to find a better drive.
Well, 18th best start in the first run. She drove into 13th. You know, that's her persona. She can drive. her brakeman Ann as a Summer Olympian in 2012, heptathlete. And Martin, her favorite athlete, Super Mario. First person I've seen list that. 100.
This is your third.
This is what Ann does.
Third bobsleigh worlds for Sarah Ertz, but she's also been in IAAF World Championships. She competed in Berlin, in Korea, and in the indoor worlds in Sopot in Poland. So this is actually her 6th World Championships. We don't have an indoor bobsleigh worlds yet.
Right to the 100 here.
Speed.
Yeah, I don't know if she's got it. It's close.
Not enough. Drops 3.
57.21.
Yeah. So she drops
Couple
behind
mistakes
Bock and Makarova, tied with Hassler.
Another tie.
Yep.
You know, Martin, there's different lines to come through Chrysler. Not everybody's got the same line, but there's this, check it out. I mean, you see Ann's sled going up and down, and then there's this pressure point, and there's this little flag here at the end. When you see that flag, I don't see it up there this year, but you dive out of there.
It's there. But it's behind a gantry. You can't see it from that shot, but... So, Anne van Nieuwenhuis in a tough battle. 4 sleds covered by 800s. Next up is Andrea Grecu of Romania. Katerina Vick behind her. Katerina and Teodora Vlad have been sharing World Cup driving duties. Braking duties, rather. Katerina making her first World Cup start. World Championship start.
She crashed out last year in the World Championships in the second run, Martin, and it's very, you know, disheartening because she had just come off a silver medal at the World Cup in Sigulda, her first ever, and the Romanians were really high on this young athlete, and that crash really was, you know, took a lot out of her.
Well, this is Andrea Grecu's
12th into the first team.
It's her 3rd World Championships as a driver. She hasn't finished either in Whistler or in Altenberg. So really critical that she gets through today and is still ready to go in day 2. She has a good run going. This is what we expect from her. 4,700s up.
Wow.
Wow.
56.83. Now that is 3,400s better. And she could move up a couple spots there, Martin. And
first heat, that would have left her 5th. And that's the kind of drive that she can produce. But having crashed out in Whistler and in Altenberg last year, can you imagine the nerves for the first run?
Well, she's got 2 down of 4. Gonna tap the wall here, and the double tap, she gets in a little skid, but pretty good, Martin. Look at her eyes, looking ahead to that big 360 whip around, and then down here where little skid going into 14, 15.
Yeah, they were watching that on the screen, and look, she survived day 1. That's the first time she's done that. Next up for BFR is Nadezhda Sergeva and Yulia Belemesnik. 6th in Whistler, 6th in Altenberg. Nadezhda's last 2 World Championship finishes.
Talked about it last week, Martin. She just seems like she's been in a slump. Hasn't achieved any kind of the numbers at least we thought. I mean, last year coming into this event, look at that skid. She did the same thing in the first run. Last year coming into the World Championships, Martin, she had won her first ever World Cup up in Sigulda. And, you know, there was, the BFR camp was very positive about what she might do. Training, she had good training results this week, Martin, but that first heat, another skid there.
Yeah. And all of that good speed is gone, and she flops off the Kreisel.
Martin, she could fall, at least.
Yeah.
She had the best start so far of any sled down. Look at Look at these mistakes.
Well, it's half a second to second place. Oh, what? Look, in the final few corners, she went from second on the splits to 6th position. And she just can't believe it. Buries her head.
She dropped 39 hundredths worse on that run, Martin. I talked about it in the first heat. She's a very competitive athlete, and the body language will tell it all.
She cannot believe what's just happened. Yeah, up top hurt.
Curve 1 to 2, but this is, you know, every place we looked, she was in a skid.
Yeah.
Boy,
they've been worse from 14 to 15, but it just carves the ice, carves the speed out of the sled where you need it most. Andrea Grecu, the leader, with 10 sleds to go, the second of 4 heats in the BMW IBSF Women's Bobsleigh World Championships. Well, Nadezhda Sergeyeva of the Bobsleigh Federation of Russia, what a nightmare second heat, John. She was hanging on in there just about and then lost a further 5 positions in the last 3 corners. Like you say, from 15, you're basically going uphill to the finish line, and that's where she lost all the speed. What a horror story. There's a great view down into the Omega curve.
But, you know, Sergeyeva's one thing. Christine de Bruyne is another.
Yeah.
They're going to finish 16th and 7th. Look at that. There's the thriller victory.
That's in the weight room and the weighing room. Yeah. She was 3/10 slower than Christine. I mean,
she was 4/10 slower than her first run. Everybody else is going 2/10, 3/10 better.
Yeah.
So the World Championships on a track.
And she would have thought.
Whoa.
Yeah, she would have thought tied for 10th, where she finished 6th last year. That's a disastrous first heat. I've got to get better. And then, I don't know, you know, like you said, she's been in a bit of a slump. The results haven't come naturally, and that means you then start overdriving, trying too hard. It's not instinctive. It's not coming naturally. It's not flowing. And maybe that's the issue. Maybe she is just overdriving and tight and tense. Well, there's Katharina Wick, the former German skeleton athlete who's now breaking for Romania. That's why her German is so good. So we had a tie for 10th place. And Alicia Rissling can't hopefully have as bad a run as Nadezhda Sergeyeva. I now wish I hadn't even started saying that sentence. 10 sleds down, 10 to go here in Altenberg. Heat 2, BMW IBSF Women's Bobsleigh World Championships, Altenberg in Germany. Top 10 sleds after the first heat. In 10th place, Alicia Rissling and Dawn Richardson-Wilson for Canada. Rissling tied with the Bobsleigh Federation of Russia athlete Nadezhda Sergeyeva after the first heat. Sergeyeva's just had a nightmare.
Well, this is the more experienced of the 2 Canadian sleds that are coming up. A couple hundredths lead. Martin, she took last year off, injured. She had a couple hundredths in the bank. It's down to 100th.
Oh, late there off Tudai. 800s back, and this is off Andrea Grecu, the Romanian, who was 500s behind her in the first heat, our current leader. Best result for Riz is a 6th position in Koenigsegg 3 years ago.
2300s back. This is another sled's going to fall, Martin, at least one spot.
Wow, 3500s back.
23. So she didn't go faster either. She went 2/10 slower. Only 2 sleds in the field have gone slower, Martin. That's the last 2 down the track.
Well, yeah. Phew. All right, well, that means top 10 overnight at minimum for Andrea Grecu. Alicia Rissling might be 11th, no worse.
Well, the line's here at a 9. Late, look at the sled flop. And that was right here. Look at her. Look at the runners. We saw that last week in Königssee. She really, Robin Hooded the runners in the exit of the Kreisel in Königssee, and they're on curve 9 too, almost like a panic steer, Martin. And
there's Dawn, her brake woman.
Is lost in
yeah,
time.
well, it sure does. For Canada, in a sled borrowed from the Jamaicans, who rented it from someone else, Cynthia Appiah with Erica Voss behind her. World Cup rookies, at least in their respective positions. Voss, a new brakewoman, and for Appiah, a new driver.
Great start. What a breakout World Cup debut last weekend. She got 4th in Königssee. Impressed everybody. You don't just come out, and especially in Innsbruck, you just don't come out and get 4th in your first ever World Cup. Good start. And then, Innsbruck to Altenberg, 2 different personality tracks. This is much more difficult. And you wouldn't expect her to be the top Canadian sled after the first heat.
And it is one of the ultimate driver's tracks. So it's not just that she's a great push athlete, she actually drove the sled very competitively. Little skid there. She's within 100th of the lead. Could be tight. 1400s back, still top 10 in her first World Championships overnight. She'll be happy with that. There are things to tidy up. There is speed to find. And in a sled she's driving for the first time, John, as well. So all ticks in the positive boxes, I think, for Cynthia Appiah in day 1 here in Altenberg.
I'm extremely impressed. If you would have told me before this race that she'd be the top Canadian sled at the end of the first day, I would have bet against that.
You'd have taken that money.
This is a great athlete. This is a great athlete in the front seat. In tracks like Innsbruck and Winterberg and, the Calgary and the Park Cities, athletes like this can do well quickly. But coming to Altenberg?
Thanks for supporting us during the season. See you tomorrow.
You certainly deserve the support. Wow, very impressive.
Yeah, for sure. And when you look at what Stephanie Schneider of Germany has done, we're on a German track, and Stephanie, silver medalist in the World Championships in Whistler a couple of seasons back, only 100th faster than debutante Cynthia Appiah. And they got 700s over Cynthia and Erica at the start. Stephanie Schneider and Leonie Fiebig.
And, she's the worst German sled in the field. There's 4 German sleds in this field because of the Junior World Championship is why they got another German sled in the field. But, just think of next year's Olympic selection, and there's a 5th German pilot that we saw last weekend that's got some potential. So, Schneider, this is a former world champion brakeman, and a world champion, numerous World Cup wins. She's got to improve here in this run, Martin, because she was terrible in the first year. This isn't good.
She was 5th last year, and this is not good. This is not good from a German driver on a German track. Schneider again leading around the side of the peak in that FES sled to see where she's going. She sits very low. Cross the line, 300's back!
Martin. Look at Rennie Spies.
At the line.
I mean,
that's the hit on the wall.
Martin, this is one of the favorites in the competition.
Yep.
2 years ago, silver medal in Whistler.
Yep. Well, they started 563. She had 7,500s. She had 1,200s rather ahead of Cynthia Appiah. What was her start over Andrea Grecu? Yeah, she had 1,200s ahead of Grecu as well.
Yeah. Oh.
And here, look at this. Boom.
Look at these. Boom. Twice she hit there.
Yeah. Man, oh man. She went from ahead to behind, out of the final corner. 7 to go here in the first day's action from our BMW IBSF Bobsleigh and Skeleton World Championships. 7th place last year after 4 runs, 7th place this year after 1 run. Martina Fonteneve of Switzerland with Nadia Pasternak on the brakes.
5th place result in her home track in St. Moritz, the World Cup this year. Martin, she doesn't get the great starts, but with her 4 or 5 years of World Cup Olympic experience underneath her belt, she's turned into a good driver. And I hope I don't jinx her. Good transition from Omega to 500ths lead. And if you have good lines, that should go out to 10 by Kreiser. No, something wrong there because she's down to 1.
She was 1200ths ahead of Andrea Grecu from the first heat. She's hanging in there.
Gonna need to be clean here. Yes, but it's 100. Boy, the times are from one intermediate to the other are strange.
Up and down, 700s back. Grecu leads with 6 to go. Well, that's where Grecu should have been in the first heat, and that burner that she laid down with her second run, I said it was the 8th fastest run of the day. In fact, it wasn't. It was a, what did she do? At 56.83. Yeah, that would have left her in 5th place after the first heat. So it is actually the 5th fastest run of the day, and that's made a huge difference to Andrea Grecu.
Not a lot of mistakes, Martin, you know?
Yeah.
The lines looked well, but she only went 200ths better than she did in the first run. Greco went like 3-4 tenths better.
Yeah.
Can't fault much of the lines, but sometimes the smoothest lines are not the fastest lines.
Yeah, Grecu 2400ths of an improvement, which shows what a disappointing first heat it was. 6 to go. Jennifer Onyesanya, that was her ankle, behind Katrin Beil. They are the World Cup champions for 2020-21, and they finished 4th in Whistler 2 years ago. 9th place last year, 6th after the first heat. She will be looking to move up.
69, it's 100th worse than the first start. Martin, their World Cup title that she won is because they have much improved at the start. And she was always a good driver, but now with the start time, she's way more competitive.
And look at the gap she's opening up. Ooh.
10th best speed. First heat, this is where she improved. Right here at the bottom, she's losing the time back.
And she needs to. Yeah, she had 2300ths over Grecu from the first heat. She's got 900ths of it left. She needs big speed at the bottom, across the line. 300ths. She's the first in, what, 6 sleds to hang on in front of Andrea Grecu.
900ths worse than her first run. Exit of 9. Pretty good, but all of a sudden the sled gets away from her. Yeah, this gets away from her here, bang, bang, and this is where, you know, their acceleration points on the track, that's one of them. Here, look at the runners. Boy, that's pretty quiet steering there, hardly any.
Yeah, comme ci, comme ça. Top 6 for Katty Beil, Andrea Grecu second, Stephanie Schneider third, covered by 600ths. Any mistakes now for the top 5, they're going to drop several spots. First up, Mariama Yamanka, the 2019 world champion, 2018 Olympic champion, 2020 4th here, 2021. Well, so far it's been a season to forget for Yamanka. She and Vanessa Mark need to turn this round in a hurry.
Yeah, Mark is making her mark on the sport as a very tall, athletic track and field athlete. And boy, the American camp is deep with brakemen, but boy, the Germans just keep wheeling out these track and field athletes. But Yamanka, she needs to put one down here to have a chance at all. And Martin, like you mentioned, she's been in a little bit of a slump for most of the year.
Yeah, 1900s out of the medals, and if she doesn't find speed at the bottom, she could find herself at the bottom of the top 10, never mind the bottom of the top 5.
And there's a race within a race amongst this German team, 4 German sleds. Next year's Olympics, there will only be 3 sleds going, and there's another German athlete making a move, so there's a lot of competitiveness in the German camp.
She drops behind Grecu. Drops behind Grecu and Biles. She loses 2 places. She will be no better, or no worse, let's say, than 7th place at the end of the first day. Just ahead of Stephanie Schneider by 2 hundredths.
Martin, 25 hundredths worse than she did in the first run. The Romanian sled went 25 hundredths better in the second run.
Yeah.
Just don't know where she's. I mean, the lines here are not bad. A little late here, but
not a horror story. At least it didn't look like it. So did they just not choose the right runners? She's just losing speed in the straight line, shakes her head.
I'm sure there was German conversation that there'd be 4 German sleds in the top 6.
Yeah.
It's not that right now.
Alana Myers-Taylor, 2-time world champion, with Sylvia Hoffman on the back of the sled. Alana had last year off on maternity leave, gave birth just over a year ago to baby Nico, and she is back with a vengeance. Just 900ths out of the medals after the first run.
Sylvia Hoffman, or Brakeman's from Arlington, Texas. She was part of that next great Olympic run where they go out and recruit athletes from other sports for other sports, and she crossed over her first world championships. Alana that's a huge lead. Alana's won on this track before. She's also had some issues here.
Yeah,
3600, 11th best speed.
Her 2 world championships have also come on German tracks in Winterberg 2015, Koenigsegg 2017. 10th best speed isn't great.
A lot of people have losing time down here, Martin, the last 5-6 sleds. Except for Greco, leader, 56.99. The track's slowing down, Martin. She's 2,100 slower, or 1,900 slower.
Well, air temperature's hovering around.
Start time.
Air temperature's hovering around plus 10, 11 at the moment. So, yeah, it's a relatively mild day. But she'll be no worse than 4th overnight.
Lines in the Kreisel, good, but Martin, with that type of start, and that type of drive, she shouldn't have had the 10th or 11th speed into there, and I think it's ice conditions.
Yeah.
But it's the same for everybody in this 4 or 5 sled group. Little skid there, 14 to 15. Hey, she certainly has positioned herself to win a medal.
Yep. Leading with 3 to go, Alana Myers-Taylor. However, 2 of the top 3 are the stunning new blood in Germany, and the final sled will be our reigning world champion. So Kim Kalicki, the silver medalist here last year, with Ann-Kristen Strack behind her today. Ann-Kristen was the silver medalist in Whistler with Stephanie Schneider 2 years ago.
Great season for Kalicki. Only off the podium 1 time in her 7 races. She missed 1 race because she was at the Junior World Championships. For Brakeman, another hurdler. Let's see if she gets out of here clean. Yes. Again, you can't win this medal, the gold medal or silver or bronze in the first day, but you can certainly drive yourself out of it. Just want to get through here overnight, position yourself for a good day tomorrow.
She had 900s over Alana. It's now from 4 out to 2,300s.
23, yeah. The best speed in the Kreisel. Alana had the 10th best speed. These are good lines here too, Martin. This looks like a really good run. This could challenge. This is going to be it.
Huge run.
Wow. 1000s better. Alana went 2/10 worse. She went 1000s better.
third best run of the competition so far. She does love that.
She knows.
Well, it's like when you hit a sweet shot in golf, you feel it, don't you? You know, you don't even have to watch it, you know you've hit it well. And she knows that this went well.
Well, I just talked about track conditions slowing down with the 10th best speed for Alana Myers-Taylor, and Kim Kalicki just had the best speed in Kreisel, so much for that theory.
And went 4/10 quicker than Alana on this run alone, and that separates Alana, well, from Kalicki by a big margin.
Big margin.
2 to go. Lara Nolte and Deborah Levy, the reigning junior world champion, Lara Nolte. Deborah Levy, her go-to girl this season long, and Nolte again, only twice off the podium, 6th in San Moritz, and crashed out of potentially a winning run in the season opener in Sigulda.
Martin, and remember, the second run last year, this heat right here, she was in the top 3, and she crashed in that run. So she's got some demons to overcome here.
This is her and Greco, isn't it, in the same boat. Get to the end of day 1. That's the crucial thing, and Nolte on a flyer.
Watch out, 5th best speed. She's gonna drop maybe some of this time back. Here it comes. Remember, Kalicki was rocket down here.
Yeah.
Good line, she's down 100. No, she's gonna, there's still time in the bottom here. There's still a chance.
Yeah. 3 corners, 900s back. Kim Kalicki lies at least in 2nd place overnight. But Lara Nolte completes day 1, so that is the first target done. She'll be happy with that. 900s off her teammate, take that. And again, they were close to the start record. They were 100th away in the first heat. I thought they might get it in the second. They were 200s away from the start record.
Martin, the race within a race amongst the German team. That's why you saw all that yelling and screaming by Kim Kalicki in the winner's box, the leader's box, because she's now Germany #1 going into the last day. Lara Nolte, though, has completed the 2nd run of the World Championships, something she didn't do last year.
Yeah, and you see the relief on her face, don't you? Okay, so Kim Kalicki leads last year's silver medalist. And at the end of day 1's action, Kaylee Humphries, last year's gold medalist, the last go, look, zenning herself down there, getting into that zone. Lolo Jones behind her.
Well, the start, she's going to give up some time at the start, Martin. 5:71 in the first run. 5:68, better start from Lolo and Kaylee. Kaylee was 2,500s down at the Kreisel and ended up the leader at the bottom. So, you know, she's won 3 World Cups on this track. She's won a World Championships last year on this track. Her brakeman's won 3 World Championships in the indoor hurdle category. Speed, 2,600. Best speed. This could grow. Driving a sled she didn't get into until earlier this week. A brand new BTC sled. 4th different sled she's tested this year.
Real statement for Kaylee Humphries and for BTC as well. Look, they're getting the best speeds, better than FES, better than anybody else's sled. She leads 3400ths of a second. And that is the 3rd fastest run of the competition, the fastest in this heat. Kalicki got close. Kalicki was only 500ths of a second slower, but she was 2,900ths back after that first heat. John, we said right at the beginning, your first run, because of the way that the sleds are all graded, particularly with run 3, your first run can be the most important, and Kaylee nailed that, and she has doubled down with a great second heat as well.
Well, we got 2 down. It's not a World Cup, it's an Olympic type competition. 4 heats, 2 days, and veterans like Kaylee Humphries dealt with this for over a decade. She won an Olympic gold medal in 2010, another one at 14, a bronze at 18. Married an American, now she's sliding for America. And Martin, she likes this track.
And listen, a great story in the back seat as well. Lolo Jones was retired. Kaylee phoned her up in the summer, said, hey, what you doing? Hanging around, doing nothing. What about you? In lockdown, come back to bobsledding. She is 1 day away from potentially being a world champion bobsledder for the first time. Kaylee Humphries leads from Kim Kalicki by 3400ths. Lara Nolte 4300ths back. Alana Myers-Taylor 8 tenths away. Katie Bile a second plus in 5th place. That is massive separation of the field by Kaylee Humphries. And there are 2 more runs to go. Kaylee Humphries could be doing a Francesco Friedrich here. Day 1 done. Day 2, all the same challenges remain. And the weather, John, it is forecast to rain tomorrow and to snow heavily on Sunday. Francesco Friedrich was saying in yesterday's press conference, forecast for up to 10 centimetres, so about 3 or 4 inches of snow forecast for Sunday. So the weather could play a factor, and having a big lead, that ain't gonna hurt.
Well, this track isn't very well covered, Martin, so snow and Mother Nature could play havoc. But we've seen great racing today, no crashes. The track certainly did some biting of some of the athletes' times. And Martin, this track speaks for itself.
Join us for all the action tomorrow as we finish our women's competition in the afternoon and start the 2-man World Championships in the morning. Until then, from John Morgan, from me, Martin Haven, and the IBSF TV crew, thanks for being with us. Stay safe.